Hi, fourth graders. Over the last 2 days in math class, you have been reviewing some of the third grade things that you've learned related to perimeter and area. One of the most important things that you need to remember from our work on Monday and Tuesday is the formulas that we mentioned to solve for perimeter and area. So I want to take a minute and review that before we get into today's lesson. So we learned earlier in the week that perimeter is when you find the distance around the outside of a shape. And we're going to be focusing on squares and rectangles. So the formula for perimeter that you're going to need to remember is length plus width gives you the perimeter. For area, area is finding the amount of square units that cover a given area of space. The formula to find the area is length times width will give us the area. So a little bit of advice. Find a little piece of paper, a piece of scrap paper, a sticky note, or something right now. Write these formulas down. Go ahead, pause the video and write them down so you have them in front of you. You're going to need them to solve the more complicated perimeter and area problems that we're going to get into. So when you are ready, we're going to go into our math book to lesson 13-6. It starts on page 709. So as you can see, we are going to be solving perimeter and area problems. So let's look at the solve and share together. A can of paint is used to cover all 168 square feet of a wall. The wall is 8 feet high. Tape is placed along the top, bottom, and sides of the wall. What is the width of the wall? How much tape is needed? Now, if your brain is like mine, it probably shut off halfway through that problem and went, wow, way too much information. I'm totally lost already. Don't let that fool you. Don't let that trick you. When you have situations that are complicated, you break them into smaller pieces. So let's look at this solve and share problem one sentence at a time. Okay, first sentence. A can of paint is used to cover all 168 square feet of a wall. Okay, what does that sentence tell us? Well, we have this wall that we're covering with paint. We know the wall is 168 square feet. Well, when I hear square mentioned with a unit of measurement, I immediately know that we're talking about area. So we actually know the area of this wall. We know it is 168 square feet. So go ahead and grab your writing tool and fill in the area box, 168 square feet. That takes care of the first sentence. Okay, second sentence. The wall is 8 feet high. What does that sentence tell us? Well, we just figured out that from top to bottom or bottom to top, the height of the wall is 8 feet. So we just figured out another piece of information that we can fill in. Okay, let's go ahead and look then at the next sentence. Tape is placed along the top, bottom, and sides of the wall. Okay, so let's think about that. Tape is placed along the top, the bottom, and the sides of the wall. Whoa, wait a second. If that's where the tape is going, your brain should be noticing that tape is following hopefully your brain was thinking perimeter. So we know we're going to have to do something with perimeter. Okay? So what is the width of the wall? Well, that question makes sense because if I look down here at my diagram, I can see that I don't know the width of the wall yet. That's something I'm going to have to figure out. And then the last thing, how much tape is needed? Well, that's the tape that's going all the way around all four sides. So when they ask that question, they're really asking me to figure out the perimeter. Okay, so let's take this one bit at a time. Okay, so to answer the first question, what is the width of the wall? We have to figure out this missing number here. Okay, so what do we already know? Well, we already know the area. So let's use that formula to help us. Okay, so you're going to start by writing the formula. Area equals length times width. Now, you may have noticed I used a cursive L. I did that on purpose so I don't get it confused with the number 1. Okay, so step 1 is always to write the formula. Now that you've written the formula, you're going to go back and fill in the pieces that you know. Okay, so let's think about this. We know the area is 168 square feet. Okay, what else do we know? We know the length of the wall is 8. We don't know the width. So we filled in every part of the formula that we possibly can. Now let's think about how are we going to find the missing piece of information, the width. Well, if we're using multiplication here, we can use the inverse operation, the opposite operation, to figure out the missing number. So the opposite operation of multiplication is division. Don't panic. This is where a calculator is going to come in super handy. And if you don't have a calculator, you're going to need to find one. Okay? So if we solve 68 divided by 8, that is going to give us this missing number of the width. So find a calculator. If you need to pause the video to hunt one down, do that. Remember, every smartphone in your house, every computer, every device has a calculator somewhere on it, almost every single one, okay? So if I type into my calculator 168 divided by 8, I get the number 21. So we just used the area equation and the inverse operation to figure out the width of the wall. It is 21 feet. So when you think about the questions that we were asked, we just figured out this first question. So now, how much tape is needed? So we're now trying to figure out how much tape would it take to go around the whole thing. Well, what we're being asked to figure out this time is actually the perimeter. So let me switch colors, okay? And since we know we're being asked to figure out the perimeter, let's go ahead. Oh, I was hoping that would switch colors. Let's try that again. There we go. We know the perimeter is length plus width plus width. Okay, so let's fill in the missing information. Well, we don't know the perimeter, so let's keep that as P. We do know the length. The length is 8 feet on this side, plus another 8 feet on that side. And now we know the width across the bottom is 21, and the width across the top is 21. So grab a calculator, add up all of those numbers, and that will tell you the final answer of the perimeter. Okay, so we're adding on our calculators 8 plus 8 plus 21 plus 21. Always add twice just to make sure you didn't come up with an error. And my answer was 58. Now, you're not finished. You have to label your answer. Okay, so always go back to the unit of measurement that we're talking about. In this situation, it was feet. So when the question asks how much tape is needed, we now know we need 58 feet of tape. Now, I know that problem was a lot, and you might be sitting there going, whoa, I don't think I can do this on my own. Follow with us through a couple more problems, and I think you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so remember the steps that we used. Write the formula first. Plug in the information that you know. Put the pieces of information into the formula. Use that to help you solve, and then label your answer. Okay? So you're going to see me using grid paper to solve the next few situations. You definitely want scrap paper right now because there is not enough room in your math book. So if you don't currently have scrap paper with you, pause the video, go get some, and then when you're ready, hit play. Okay, so in the guided practice section of lesson 13-6, we're going to focus on doing number 3 and number 4 together. I think after solving number 3 and number 4, you'll have the hang of it, okay? So number 3, we're given a rectangle. It says find n. The perimeter equals 46 inches. Okay, so find n. N is the length of this bottom side, also known as the width. Okay, we're being asked to find the width of the rectangle. We know the height of the rectangle, or the length, is 8 inches. We know the perimeter. Okay, so scrap paper. We're working on problem number 3. Okay. Well, how do I know what formula to pick? Well, it said perimeter. So I'm going to use the perimeter formula, and I'm going to write that first. So I know perimeter equals length plus width plus width. Okay, next step, fill in the information that we know. Okay, so what do we know? We know the perimeter is 46 inches. So let's come back to our scrap paper, and under perimeter, let's record that we know the perimeter is 46 inches. Okay, what else do we know? Well, we don't know the width. They're calling that n. But we do know the length. The length is 8. So let's come back and we can fill in the length of the one side and the length of the other. Now, we don't know the width. They're not calling it W. They're calling it letter N. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to letter N. Okay, so now guys, let's think about this. Let's use this formula to figure out the situation, okay? We know 8 plus 8 plus 2 other quantities is going to give us 46. Okay, so let's think about the inverse operation here. The opposite or inverse of addition is subtraction. So we're going to use subtraction to help us figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to the side. Okay, so I know the perimeter is 46 inches total. If I take away these 2 sets of 8, and yes, you can do this on a calculator. So 46 take away 8, 16 minus 8 is 8, is 38. Okay, so I took this one away. Now let me take away one more 8. That gives me 30. Okay, so 4th graders, here's what that means. We are left with 30 units. Okay, inches. Sorry, had to come back to the problem. Okay, so we're left with 30 inches. Now think about this. That 30 inches isn't one of these numbers. That's both of these. Okay, so 30 inches is the top here and the bottom is 30. This is not 30 and 30. 30 covers both of those. So what we have to do is take that 30 and cut it in half. Okay? If you can already do that mentally, wonderful. If you can't figure out what half of 30 is, on your calculator, take 30 and divide by 2. Okay? What you're going to discover is that that is 15 inches. So we now know the top is 15 inches and the bottom is 15 inches. Whoa, crazy, right? So guys, guess what? We just found N. N equals 15 inches. All right. I know you're probably still with your head spinning, but let's do one more. Follow the steps. Okay, so number 4. All right, let me go back to my grid paper and let me make some more space. All right, I think I'm going to do it this way. Thank you for being patient. Okay. All right, back to number 4. Okay, number 4. Find N. The perimeter equals 26 centimeters. Okay, we know 9 centimeters. We know N. We don't really know the area. Okay, all right, so let's look at this carefully. we know here the width. We know the top is 9. And you know what? Let's go ahead and label the bottom. Ooh, that does not look like a 9. That looks like a G. It is really difficult writing on a tablet. All right, so let's fix that. All right, so let's try and make that a little bit better. All right, so we know this side is 9 centimeters. Okay, so we know the width. We don't know n. That's the length. Okay, so that's what we're going to figure out. But we do know the perimeter. Okay, so let's come back to our scrap paper. Let's label this problem number 4. And since we know the perimeter, let's use that formula. Perimeter equals length plus width plus width. Okay, so step 1, always start with the formula. Okay? Okay, step 2, fill in the information that you know in the formula. So here's what we know. We know the perimeter is 26 centimeters. So let's fill that in. Under perimeter, we're going to write 26. Okay, let's think about what else we know. We also know the width is 9 centimeters. Okay, so in our formula, we know the width is 9. So under both of the W's for width, we're going to fill in 9. We don't know the length. Now the math book is calling that n. So instead of L for length, I'm going to fill that in as n. Okay, and this is the same situation as what we did in number 3. We're going to use the inverse operation. Okay, so we know we have 26 as our total perimeter, as the measure around the whole shape. If we take away these 2 9s, so let me take away 1, and yes, you can use a calculator, it's going to be way faster. All right, so I took away 1 9. I'm going to take away another. I'm left with 8. So what that means is there's 8 centimeters left. That 8 centimeters has to be split between these 2 sides of the rectangle. Okay, so we have to figure out, how do you take 8 and split it evenly? What is half of 8? Well, you could on a calculator just do 8 divided by 2. Or if you know your multiplication facts, you know half of 8 is 4. So what that means is this side is 4 centimeters and this side is 4 centimeters, which also means we found n. So come back to number 4 in your math book. We know n is equal to 4 centimeters. So that means this side is 4 centimeters and this side is 4 centimeters. Okay? So you're going to try some problems on your own. Okay? You're going to try number 5, number 6, number 8, number 9. On the back side, we also would like you to try number 16. For number 16, make sure you draw a picture. Okay? Number 16, as you can see, has a star, so this is a bonus problem. Now, as you're doing your work, remember the steps that we showed you in this lesson. The steps are, where did they go? Here they are. The steps are, write the formula that you are going to be using, okay? And you can figure out the formula by looking at the information that you have. Second thing, fill in or plug in the information that you know into the formula and use that to help you solve. You're going to be using a lot of the inverse operations. And then when you're done, make sure you label your answer. If you get really stuck, use your teacher's office hours and let your teacher know that you need help, okay? But give this a try, take your time, use your formulas. You can do this. All right, 4th grade, keep up the good work.